a kind, more like the people in the world seeking perspectives with it.
How's it going? It is another episode of Hard Knock Life. I am your host, Keith Chow, and we have gathered tonight to talk about a few things. This episode was prompted by an online conversation I was having with our guest tonight about the nerd triple crown, as it were, or the nerd grand slam when it comes to different properties and which Asian American actor deserves that crown based on some of the movie roles that he or she has been in. So we're going to dive into that. But I did want to talk about some other stuff because, as you know, this week has been pretty busy when it comes to talking about white women playing Asian people. So we're going to get into that as well. But before we get into any of that, I want to introduce my guest for this evening. He is a writer for the website UFN My Family, otherwise known as YomYomF.com. Please welcome, live from the Bay Area, Dominic Mah. What's up, Dominic?
Hi, how are you?
Hope you're doing well with your basketball team winning so many games and getting ready for the playoffs.
Amazing amount of games. We're all very happy about that.
Like I was saying in the intro, the main reason we've gathered is you and I had a bit of a back and forth online about which actor or actress deserves what we're kind of dubbing the nerdiest Asian American actor in Hollywood. How would you define what that means?
Well, I just thought to figure out who the nerdiest Asian actor was. To me, it means you have to have been in one of the major space operas, star something, and a superhero movie, and something involving fantasy, the current the swords and boobs genre, which I'm actually the one I'm least strong on. But people are loving that, and yeah. I know, because that that means you've stretched into 3 different areas of
nerddom.
Yeah, I think so. I was trying to think of someone who had done all that.
Yeah, and it's a surprisingly short list when it comes to how many Asian American actors are able to portray roles in those 3 different types of movies and shows. Because one of the reasons why I think it's so difficult to, or not only is it difficult to find those actors, but like when we do find them, we celebrate them, is that there aren't that many opportunities for Asian American actors in particular in these kinds of genres. Because as the news from this week has proven, whenever there are roles that could potentially be played by an Asian American actor, they usually go to white people. And what I'm talking about, if you've been following Twitter or even just if you've been on the internet at all this week, you have known that Marvel dropped the Doctor Strange trailer on Tuesday night. Everyone went crazy for it. I think Asian American Twitter went, whoa, what's up with David Carradine in the movie? And if you don't know what I'm referring to, of course, Tilda Swinton, one of the whitest actors in the world, was cast to play the Ancient One in Doctor Strange. What was your initial reaction, Dominic, when the Doctor Strange trailer hit the web?
Oh, well, I didn't realize he would be walking through so many Asian cities, like clearly somewhere in China. And, someplace I'm gathering is Tibet, which makes the Ancient One thing even stronger. But I mean, to tell you the truth, I secretly believe that, as others do, that Tilda Swinton is an alien. So it didn't really hit me that bad. That one I don't particularly object to, just because I also feel the Ancient One is from some sort of otherworldly place.
Well, yeah, I think one of the things, Tilda Swinton's casting has been announced months ago, and we all kind of knew this was coming. I think the one mystery that surrounded her role was like, what was she going to look like? And no one quite expected the David Carradine look. What did you think about that?
Well, you mean the fact that they went out of their way to make her look like an Asian grandmaster of something and did everything towards that end except have her actually be Asian?
Yeah, something like that.
That's a little strange. I mean, she's got all the markers, bald head, robe.
That out-of-body kung fu that she does to Stephen Strange.
Hand gestures. So yeah, it's as if they dressed her up. Yeah, I mean that was a little surprising.
It kind of it's on the heels of the Asian American Iron Fist movement that the nerds of color had been chomping at the bit for a long time. You know, the idea that Danny Rand, who is traditionally Caucasian in the comics, could be played by an Asian American actor was something that I've written about, that we've kind of tweeted about a lot on the Nerds of Color. And it's just interesting that there was a lot of pushback. For those of you who may or may not have been aware, anytime you tweeted out Asian American and Iron Fist in the same tweet, like you would get 100,000 fist bros coming down my mentions, just like Danny Rand is white. And it's interesting also that like we live, it's 2016. Roles that are traditionally people of color go to white people all the time. So like, what do you think accounts for that kind of cognitive dissonance where like, on the one hand, casting a white person as a person of color is like beyond the pale, but whitewashing still happens.
I do recall, and this will get back in the Iron Fist thing with Colleen Wing and stuff, like people would knee-jerk respond to you like, dude, have you read Iron Fist comics? Which obviously you read an Iron Fist comic or two. Like that was beside the point. I don't remember if when the Tilda Swinton thing happened, if anyone shouted out, dude, have you read Doctor Strange comics and you know what Ancient One looks like? I don't feel like they pulled that card as if the authenticity was there. I just think they meant, oh yeah, yeah, Tilda Swinton, she's ancient or something. So,
well, I mean, and I remember like when that first happened, I think the initial response by a lot of like the comics blogs that I follow at least was actually like, that's awesome, they've gender bent the character, Tilda Swinton can do no wrong. And it was like, well, hold on, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Like they're also, problematic character, of course, right? That was also one of the pushbacks against an Asian American Danny Rand is like, do you really want the kung fu guy to be Asian? And then like this is another, we made jokes about the grasshopper and Mr. Miyagi kind of aspect of her, but like that's the wise kung fu mentor is another stereotype. And first of all, the roles for Asians in these types of films are very limited to those either the kung fu guy or the wise, Mr. Miyagi type. But is erasing Asian people from the equation the answer to that?
You realize there's a whole audience out there that is going to totally confuse Doctor Strange with Iron Fist. Discussion, right? Like some people are just like, there's the trailer, and there's some Marvel guy, and there's Iron Fist, Doctor Strange. It's the Asian one with Tilda Swinton and some kung fu, right? Anyway, sorry.
Well, to be fair, it's the same freaking story, right? White guy goes to Asia to find himself, gets powers, comes back a hero.
Yeah, Doctor Strange just ends up with a whole bunch more power. One hopes. I'm confused by the whole thing. But I'm sorry. Did I address that question at all? I mean, I thought it was a great idea to have an Asian American Iron Fist. There was one. But I'm not going to be sad if Shang-Chi and Colleen Wing are also in it.
Yeah.
Or canonically Asian.
I want to put a pin in the Colleen Wing thing because I think we're gonna get to that in a minute. The other, but before we get to the Nerd Grand Slam debate, the great Nerd Grand Slam debate, but we're going to crown a champion tonight. I did want to address the other kind of big whitewashing brouhaha that kind of happened, and that was DreamWorks. Again, this is something that's been in the works for months, but today DreamWorks revealed the first look at Scarlett Johansson as Major Motoko Kusanagi. What was your reaction to that?
I had been completely denying that movie existed. I was just living in a little bubble thinking, because the other anime adaptations, they've always been hung up for a long time. Akira, Evangelion. And I just thought it was because someone with good sense was going, we're not actually going to make this movie. And then when the image came out, I was like, oh wait, they're actually doing that. So, it's just, but you see, like, my upsetness about the whitewashing ScarJo thing is less than my upsetness that they're just making a Ghost in the Shell live action movie at all, because I don't think that's going to fly. I just don't think it'll translate.
You're right. Like anytime an anime gets adapted to live action, it never works. Either it gets held up in development hell, or it comes out and it's Dragon Ball, right?
Well, it was also a Speed Racer.
Speed Racer was another one that was terrible. I mean, I know that it has its fans, but come on. But one of the kind of the arguments for this type of film is that, well, we're adapting it. Like some of the arguments I've been seeing on Twitter is that you're changing the context anyway. It's probably gonna be set in New York and not Tokyo, right? Like that's the whole thing about Akira. It's gonna be in Neo York or instead of Neo Tokyo. And it kind of begs the question then, what's if you strip the like Asianness or the Japaneseness away from the property, what's the point of adapting it for live action to begin with?
I don't know, because it was such a beautifully rendered film. It was kind of up there with Miyazaki's stuff, just like something that was like so in the rhythm of anime itself. Like I can't imagine. I mean, I had a couple thoughts which are like in the Ghost in the Shell. Isn't there the whole thing about the ghost is a form of human spirit that is transferable through these different bodies, right? And they're really into the body switching movies lately. Have you noticed? There's a whole bunch of ones that show up, including my friend Jen's movie Advantageous, and that one with the criminal right now.
Right.
So I just had this absurd fantasy, this will never happen, that somehow that is worked into the plot of the Ghost in the Shell movie, and it all makes sense that somehow the ghost of this canonical Japanese character just somehow ends up in a body that looks like ScarJo. I don't think that's actually going to happen, but
Probably not.
Yeah. And then I thought it was like too much like the story with Psylocke, and I really don't know. Like, I'm really curious about what's going to happen with that too. We could have a fun discussion about the best transference of Japaneseness into alternate bodies. I don't want to hate ScarJo. I mean, I know she's like, if you mash up like her thing in Lucy with, her Black Widow stuff, you basically get a Ghost in the Shell movie anyway. So I can see what they were thinking about, but I don't think it's going to be very Japanese.
Yeah, well, and she does get to kill a lot of Asian people in Lucy, so I think that's the spiritual sequel. And this goes back to even with the Iron Fist thing and the Doctor Strange thing, and it's all part of the same kind of circle. Is that even in Ghost in the Shell, they've cast Japanese actors as like minor characters. I mean, they beat Takeshi's in it, and so it's not like that's kind of the weird cognitive dissonance of a film like that. It's like these characters are clearly Japanese in the original source. Talk about sticking to the canon, right? Mm-hmm. But that argument of sticking to like canonical representations of characters only seems to go one way, and that one way is towards whiteness, right? Like, if the canon is white, then they should stay white. If the canon is non-white, then it's okay and it's fudgeable and they can still be white. That's kind of like, that's the message I think that I've been receiving. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I would agree, and it's a scam. Maybe except in the case of Samuel Jackson, Nick Fury, but I think we accept it. But maybe that's beside the point.
Right. Well, and I think because that's the thing too, like there have been examples where white characters get replaced by non-white actors. And, as far as I know, the world is still spinning, right? Like we haven't gone down some rabbit hole where like there's no more white people in the world. So I don't know. I don't know what the big deal is about race bending one way when you whitewash the other. But that's neither here nor there. The reason that we have gathered is to talk about Asian American actors and not the white people who play Asian people. So just to give a little bit of background, this conversation kind of started when Jessica Henwick was announced as being cast in the Iron Fist show as Colleen Wing, which is a big deal because, she's one of the only Asian people probably in the show that will have speaking lines and hopefully some complexity. And they cast Game of Thrones actress Jessica Henwick to play her. You reported it on Yum Yum F. Can you talk a little bit about your reaction to Jessica's casting?
Oh, well, I just thought it was awesome because I thought she was that X-Wing pilot in Force Awakens. And basically I just had a really big thing for the fact that there was a female Asian X-Wing pilot.
Yeah.
Who's named, it's at one point she was named Jessica Pava, and then perhaps her name is Jess Tester, and it's not exactly clear, but it's somewhere between fan fiction and reality. But anyway, and she's also in Game of Thrones, which people love, and I thought, oh, how great, like as as we're looking for, positive role models and positive representations of Asian actors, isn't it great that she covered, all these bases of nerddom? I mean, like, few actors get to do that.
Yeah.
Of any color.
Exactly. And so just to set the stage, so what we've deemed as the grand slam of like nirvana, as it were, would be, as you said, being in one of the space operas, one of the star movies, whether it's Star Wars or Star Trek, being in a superhero property. And then the third one is kind of, I think the third one is where it gets a little, I think, in my mind, in my head canon, it gets a little flexible. It's that they have to be in a franchise, a fantasy science fiction franchise that's not superhero and it's not Star Wars. So your entry
flexible. We're going for a certain critical mass of nerdiness here, though, and several people can claim star something and superhero something, but like to have like one other, like, I think video game also also counts. But yeah. And it also started because you actually corrected me because I misidentified someone.
Yeah, but we won't get into that all look same aspect.
It'll remain a thoughtful story, but the point
stands that, and because the thing is, like, it's really, because I actually did a little bit of research, and it's really hard to hit all three, because it's one thing to be in Star Wars or Star Trek. That's already a small fraternity of people. And then to have been in that and a superhero film, and then on top of that, a third property that's nerd friendly, but also not those first two. It's almost impossible. So I understand why Jessica Henwick she ticks all the boxes. She was in Star Wars. Well, I'll let you make the case. What is your how does she fit your criteria, and what are her bona fides as far as the grand slam of nerddom?
Well, I think it has to do with not just being in it, but being part of the iconography of each thing. She's not just in Star Wars. She gets to wear the helmet. She's just in circular base. We all remember the X-wing pilots.
Yeah.
In some way, they stick with us. So that's like a key part. That's a face within the memorable part of the mythology. Like, didn't they make an action figure of like Porkins and everything? And
we're all waiting for the Jess Pava action figure, by the way, Hasbro. If you're watching,
the Jess Pava action figure, be awesome. Yeah, they're a little slacking on that one, in my opinion. But anyway, and Colleen Wing is not an insignificant character. She's a big part of that whole domain. If you're familiar with the Heroes for Hire section of the universe, they're like running buddies with Luke Cage and Iron Fist. Yeah, she's a martial artist in that one. It's questionable. She probably will have a sword. And in Game of Thrones, she's she's also there. She uses a bullwhip a lot in that one.
Yeah. So if you're not familiar, though, she Jessica Henwick plays one of the Sand Snake sisters on Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, she ticks all the boxes, right? She's in your space opera. She's a superhero now, and she's on Game of Thrones. So I think that's a pretty good resume, number one. And she's a really young actor too. She probably gets points for having hit all three before turning 25 or whatever. So I'll give her props. My in doing the research, who I thought was, and you kind of mentioned this previously too, is Ken Leung, having been also in Star Wars: The Force Awakens. So shout out to J.J. Abrams, because if it wasn't for Force Awakens, we wouldn't have so many Asian people in Star Wars.
We wouldn't even be able to have this debate. It would have
It'd be like, how many superhero movies has George Takei been in? No, so because of The Force Awakens, Ken Leung, who plays one of the Resistance admirals, I guess is he an admiral? I don't know what his rank is. But he was also an evil mutant in the X-Men movie that shall not be named, but I'll name it. It's the Brett Ratner X-Men movie, X-Men: The Last Stand. He was also in that. And my third franchise, to give him the grand slam was. He was not an insignificant character on that sprawling science fiction series on ABC called Lost. He played Miles Strom. And I remember, from his first appearance on that show, he quickly became my favorite character, simply because, he was the Asian American. And, shout out to Daniel Day Kim, but he couldn't speak English for 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. When Miles came on, he was strictly an Asian American character, and he was awesome. So that's my entry into this contest. Is I feel like Ken Leung gets the grand slam for being in Star Wars, X-Men, and Lost. So
you're absolutely right. It's a strong point. I just don't happen to like Lost. I wouldn't put it in that thing. I think Lost.
You and a lot of people, I think.
I don't think of Lost as being in the nerdy sphere, because I think it actually just sort of steals from a bunch of different to make this kind of confusion bait, which is their actual genre. And again, this is not about this is even about whether we like the actors or quality of their performance. This is just about who's the nerdiest one,
right?
By our standards of what they, and what. I mean,
and to be fair, completely arbitrary standards, by the way. So anyway,
these are very arbitrary. They're very flexible. I like to say flexible instead of arbitrary. The standards could change tomorrow. And again, he was next in The Last Stand, which was like, you see that guy with the spikes out of his?
I think his name was Quill. I think he has like little, yeah. So I mean, I think if we were to open this up and let like the like Twitter or our listeners or viewers vote, I would probably lose. As much as I love you, Ken, the fact that you were an X-Men, the last stand of all the X-Men movies, is probably not a good look. So that said, I thought
notable. He's a male Asian American male actor, and it's worth noting that, because there are a few more Asian American females who are more who are more out there. So it's a good thing to consider. Or Asian British. I'm sorry, they're all.
Yeah, well, and because here's the thing that makes it tricky is, like I said, one prong of this Triple Crown is Star Wars / Star Trek, and that is a very small circle of people that to fit that criteria. Because I was thinking of Star Trek. It's really George Takei and John Cho. What other, so if you start from them, what superhero properties are they in? I mean, does Heroes count as a superhero property? Maybe.
I guess, well, you can't make an argument why it wouldn't. It's called Heroes.
Yeah, but it sucked. That you can make that argument. But then, so if you give Takei Heroes, what's the third thing for George Takei, right?
I'm sure. I'm sure he has some meme out there where he's in a loincloth or something. I mean, do we want to IMDb it really quick? But it's interesting. It's interesting that you bring up the Star Trek, Star Wars problem, because that brings me to my next candidate, the other person who thought was a runner-up, which might be worth looking into. So I thought it's a bold claim to say one Asian actor is the nerdiest. So I looked it up, and Ming-Na also, one can make a strong argument for her, because she's in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and a superhero, and Mulan, and was in Street Fighter, and so for me, those are the two things except the space opera. But then it turns out she was also in Stargate.
She was in Stargate. Right, I've tried to, similar to the AA Iron Fist, I've tried to launch a campaign to get Ming-Na into Star Wars, because I know that she's a huge fan of Star Wars, and now that we're actually putting Asian people in Star Wars, and she works for Disney, not only because if Ming-Na gets into Star Wars, she not only gets the nerd Triple Crown, she gets the Disney Triple Crown, because she'll be a Marvel superhero, a Disney princess, and a Star Wars character. So this is why Disney needs to put her in a Star Wars movie. I'm totally with you on Ming-Na Wen.
Yeah. I think she actually is a nerd in heart and her personality too, right? I mean,
for sure.
She's like really into this stuff.
A little too much. You're too into it, Ming-Na. That was my question though was that with the space opera criteria of the title, did it have to be Star Wars and Star Trek? Because if you do open it up to other space operas, then you have a little bit more leeway, right? And so that being the case, this is where my backup candidate is actually a Pacific Islander actor Jason Momoa gets consideration because he was also a Stargate alum. He is the once and future King of Atlantis, Aquaman, and one of the most iconic characters on Game of Thrones, Khal Drogo. Because I feel like the other thing that trips me up for the Triple Crown is that even if you find someone who's in a space opera and a superhero film, there's not a lot of Asian people in sword and sandals, like fantasy epics, right? Like there's one genre that we have not permeated yet is like the fantasy epic. Like there are no Asians in The Hobbit, right? Like
it's a horde and they're in the desert and they've got swords and like, masks and stuff. I mean, sometimes I believe there's an Asian horde in those, but yes, fair point. I'm sorry, which space thing was Jason Momoa in?
He was also in Stargate. He was in Stargate Atlantis.
Stargate, I'm not super familiar with. Stargate Atlantis, you say? Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, what a coincidence.
Yeah.
You can see how they cast these things.
Well, this is what I'm saying. It's like if we open it up beyond Star Trek and Star Wars, then I'm going to throw Khal Drogo out there because again, not a lot of Asian Pacific Islanders in those kind of fantasy epics. So that's like if you find one in there, that's I think why Jessica Henwick works so well. It's like once you've made it into like a fantasy epic, then the superhero and the space opera might be a little bit easier. I don't know. Maybe
they're likely to fall in line. I guess my feeling about it was when I think of like who the nerdiest actor is, as far as the space operas, I thought of in terms of, who's going to make a living off showing up at conventions for the rest of their lives. And that's why it kind of circles around, you know what I mean, Star Trek and Star Wars.
Yeah.
Those ones that,
not a big Stargate convention circuit is what you're saying.
I'm sure there is a Stargate convention, but I mean, but there's a certain tier, and it's definitely where you can get invited to any Star Trek thing, and Trek people will go and hang out just because you were in one episode as a red shirt or whatever. So Star Wars and Star Trek are on that plane, I think, and they're always going to be like, even if they don't know exactly who you were, just can be like, oh, I was Blue 3 in The Force Awakens, and like, yeah.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think again, and Jess Pava actually has launched a pretty dedicated fan base too. Like, because I think the other thing that the whole point of these properties and sites like, the Nerds of Color and Yum Yum F, especially the superhero beat that you cover over there, is that fandom itself is its own kind of genre in a way, right? Like, and with The Force Awakens, you have all of the Finn Poe stuff, which is great, which is all fan driven. But I think Jess Pava also had a pretty sizable following from her like 5 minutes of screen time, solely because she was one of the few female X-Wing pilots, and then an Asian American X-Wing pilot on that. Or Asian, I don't think she's American, but so I mean, I think she's definitely iconic. Again, Star Wars, Hasbro makes every single character in the background of the cantina. We're going to get a Jess Pava action figure like sooner than later.
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure. And if you get an action figure made out of you, you have crossed the threshold to like,
Yes, that too. There's lifetime convention status and action figure. Those things definitely, I think, put you in the top tier for consideration for Nerdiest.
And that's why maybe I might have to like put my money on Jason Momoa, because like he's got the action figures already. So
yeah.
more so than anyone else. Like you can get a Khal Drogo figure, you can get an Aquaman figure, even though he was in Batman versus Superman for like 5 seconons.
Yeah,
there were multiple figures of Aquaman in the toy stores now. So
really, they have a figure of that Aquaman already?
Yeah, they have. Mattel has put out 4 versions of the same figure already. So let's broaden up a little bit though, because again, it's once you've like limited yourself to Star Wars and Star Trek, there aren't a lot of Asian American actors, and part of like what we were doing with George Takei is like how do you find the other things that they've kind of excelled in, or at least been featured in, that are nerd properties. So like, since we talked about the original Sulu, if we looked at the current Sulu, John Cho, he doesn't have a superhero property, does he? Not I looked, I didn't see a superhero property on his resume.
He's been in a science fiction movie. I mean, he started Star Trek. So he's already got that base covered. Never mind.
Yeah, he's got
So
Star Trek. He needs a superhero, and he needs a third, alternate, franchise property, whether it's fantasy or not. I think this is where it's a little flexible, because if we limit it to sword and sandal fantasy, or like Lord of the Rings type fantasy, like elves and dwarves, we limit ourselves even further. But John was one of like, when people were throwing out names for Doctor Strange before Benedict Cumberbatch was named. I think I remember seeing John's name floated out there by at least blogs that look like us.
Sure.
So how great would that have been? At least he would have gotten the superhero.
Yeah. No, I'm rooting for him to be in one of these superhero movies eventually. I think it's especially hard with Star Trek because the Star Trek characters are so iconic and locked in. I think if you're that person, you actually are not easily crossoverable into all the other things, because people would literally get confused or upset. He could still be the DC Asian Adam.
Yeah, Ryan Choi. John Cho for Ryan Choi. We're starting it right now. Trending.
I'm all for that. Because DC is going to have to rejigger its whole thing anyway. I mean, I think it will completely revamp their slate.
Speaking of DC heroes, I mean, like, can we make Cal Penn an appendage of John Cho's? Can they be a 2-for-1 deal? Because Cal was in Superman Returns, so we take Harold and Kumar. We can at least maybe get 2 of the 3.
Yeah,
I guess we're reaching at this point.
Well, we are, but it's not outside the realm to take Harold and Kumar as a unit. Like, if you wanted to declare them homecoming king of nerdiness, that would be a chart worth making. Yes, they are attached like appendages.
My last Asian American actor who gets 2 of the 3 is BD Wong. BD is, of course, iconically from the Jurassic Park franchise. And I guess that's my third tier. He's recently Hugo Strange on Gotham, so that's his superhero property. The thing with BD Wong is he's not in a space opera.
He's not in space anything?
He's not in space anything. We need nothing. Well, again, nothing on the tier of Star Wars and Star Trek.
Yeah. No.
So we need to get BD. We need to get BD in Star Wars.
Yeah.
The other one that
you really got my brain turning on this one.
Yeah. No, the other one who needs a fantasy epic in his resume is Donnie Yen. So Donnie Yen has Rogue One coming out, which takes care of the Star Wars. He was in Blade 3. He was in one of the Blades, so that's a superhero property.
There's a great crossover area where a lot of those martial arts films they kind of dovetail with the one would consider fantasy, or at least a beloved nerdy genre.
No.
I don't think. I mean, it's a stretch again.
Which is this whole conversation has been reaching, to be honest. What this conversation is illuminating is that there needs to be more opportunities for Asian American actors, right? I think that's the takeaway from this conversation, is that once there are more opportunities across the board for Asian American actors, we won't have to be like, hey, who's the third guy who's in the background of this movie, right?
Right.
Because it's not easy to hit all 3, because when I was thinking about this topic tonight, I thought if we took it outside of just Asian American actors, I thought, oh, who's got it in the bag? Samuel L. Jackson, right? But then I couldn't, the third tier is where I had to struggle a little bit, because of course he's got Star Wars out of the way with Mace Windu. He's Nick Fury.
Yeah, it's pretty big. He's been like a million movies. I'm sure he's.
But it's that third tier. He hasn't done a lot of and again, it has to be I feel like the third one has to be a franchise. It can't just be like a one-off in some random, low budget science fiction movie. Because I guess Jurassic Park. If I use Jurassic Park for BD Wong, I guess I have to use it for Samuel L. Jackson. But
that totally counts, dude. That totally counts.
Okay, but again,
I forgot that he was in Jurassic Park.
Yeah, he was the holding on to your butts guy in the first one.
That's right.
Because Sam Jackson is the king of nerds, right? I think he's got it hands down.
Right.
So
and not just any characters, he gets to play Nick Fury. So So these are pretty serious parts of the story he's telling.
Yeah. Billy D. Williams also needs to have a fantasy epic in his resume because he's already got Star Wars and Batman.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that's a good one. Just need to get that guy's sword or a dinosaur. Almost as nerdy as Samuel L. Jackson. I wanted to go back to the Doctor Strange thing just for a second.
Yeah.
Because I also have high hopes that one of the future nerdiest Asian actors will be Benedict Wong.
Yes.
And because, and here's, again, in the space opera thing, he was in Prometheus.
That's right. Aliens. If you're in Aliens.
And the Ridley Scott related science fiction things. I guess also James Cameron. Anyway, those are like also in the top pantheon of space opera things.
Yeah,
could we say that? They're also in that Aliens and Terminator, say.
Yeah.
And I like to think of all the Asian people who are in Terminator. But anyway, so that's you don't have to have been a Star thing. I think the line is
science fiction.
Is below any Alien movie and above Stargate.
You just don't want to give the title to Khal Drogo. I see. You're just trying to keep it away from Jason Momoa. I get it.
Don't think Stargate is a real thing.
So like I would think Firefly would count, but there are no Asians in Firefly, so fuck Firefly. There really are. Like everything takes place in an Asian influenced world, but there are no Asian people in Firefly. Your fave is problematic, Joss Whedon. Anyway, but no, I think Benedict Wong, and he was also in The Martian. Does The Martian count? No,
but it helps his cred. It's like I wasn't in those movies reluctantly. I think that's like high class science fiction cred.
that's a whole other tier of nerdy, I think.
What, hard sci-fi versus like space opera sci-fi?
Yeah, maybe, and that's why even maybe the line of that's where the line of demarcation is too, because maybe Aliens, Terminator type sci-fi is a different plane. I'm not saying higher or lower from Star Wars, Star Trek. Mm-hmm. That can serve as the third tier, because if that's the case, then Idris Elba, he wins the belt because he has also Prometheus, but then he's also Heimdall, and he's the villain in Justin's Star Trek movie coming out. So and everybody wants to be James Bond. So I think
that's the thing. Like he's on a track where, God willing, he's going to be in everything. He's on the track, and I love Idris Elba. When you get on that kind of hot track as an actor, where all the big genre things are coming your way at once, and somehow Christian Bale is in Terminator and also Batman, and all these other things, just like in the space of 1 year. It would be interesting if an Asian actor that we knew got in that kind of role, got in that kind of, like, presence in our pop culture viewability.
Well, and I think that's the gist of, again, the takeaway of this whole conversation is that it's when you're thinking of like Caucasian actors who hit every one of those tiers, the list is much longer. Like you mentioned, Christian Bale, Chris Hemsworth. These are people who are in all of the different genres. And when you're a person of color, when you're an actor of color, it's harder to hit all of those different fields because there's just the opportunities are more limited.
True that.
I guess what we've determined tonight is that there is no people's champion. The Rock, maybe. Oh, The Rock is another one. Dwayne Johnson. I can't believe we forgot about The Rock.
Well, yeah. There are a couple different ways to go on The Rock argument. I mean, he's been in the loincloth of the sword a couple of times, I believe.
The Mummy. Scorpion King.
Yeah. It's in G.I. Joe.
Superhero.
Yeah.
He's Black Adam.
Are you serious? Oh, he is Black. Right.
So he's got the superhero property down. I think his Achilles heel is he needs to be in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Wait. Or scratch that. The Rock was on an episode of Voyager. Look it up. YouTube it. The Rock on Voyager. The Rock wins. The Rock is the people's champ.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, good job, Rock.
Plus, he's
I'm sure you're happy with the title of being the nerdiest Asian actor alive by our flexible area.
and he's already the people's champion. So there you go.
And I'm sure there are many action figures of him.
Oh, shit ton.
Yeah.
Well, we'll leave it at that. The Rock wins, as always, if you smell what The Rock is cooking. I want to thank Dominic Mah. Do you have anything you want to plug? Your website, your handle, all those things?
Oh, thanks very much for having me. I do a web series on karaoke culture that's at karaokerhapsody.com, which is like Bohemian Rhapsody except Karaoke Rhapsody. And I also write for Yum Yum F on subjects very much like this one, superheroes, space operas, etc. So go check me out at UFN Me, UFN My Family.
All right, and thank you for tuning in to the latest Hard Knock Life. I'll catch you next time.
Well, it's the NOC in full color, you see me? The Hard Knock Life, comics, movies, and TV, yeah. Pop culture with a different perspective. Watch it on your screen, hit play, so check this. This is the Hard Knock Life, but not the jigga kind. More like the people in the world seeking perspectives with a different line. The kids who share their interests together with a similar kind. When they said John Glover for Spider-Man, they didn't mind. The activists, directors, comments, and the lectures. Fanboys, professional artists, and professors. Maybe a nerd who's just like you, talking about the things that you like too. So I invite you to the NOC in full color, you see me? The Hard Knock